Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. I hope you're having a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we have December champions for 2023 coming out. And I want to do a reaction to you guys. We're also live on YouTube as well as on Twitch. So if you have ever have some time to drop by the streams, feel free to join us, okay? I'll leave some descriptions in the comments below, or, description information for you guys to click some links and whatnot. But with that being said, we have, I believe, at least 3, maybe 4 different champions that are coming out today that I wanted to take a look at and do a breakdown on. One of them was Blizzard, so we're going to actually ignore that one. You can watch my video that's a specific breakdown for that fusion that we're currently actively participating in. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. I was wrong. Let's just say that right now. I was wrong. I thought this was going to be like a reskin for Saint Nick, but it's not. It's a whole new champion. Let's break it down. Caroline the Ringer, a legendary Void support champion for the Knights Rev. Interesting. His A1 is going to have attack all enemies, has a 35% chance of decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs by 1 turn. It's called Death Knell. Interesting. It can be booked up to a 50% chance. You know, one thing I'm noticing is that, like, decreasing the duration of enemy of buffs, like, from the enemy, so, like, kind of like a pseudo strip or straight up strip, is something that's been very, very prominent amongst the new releases of champions for Raid. And I wonder if there's a reason why. Canonical of Cold, his A2. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a Hex debuff and a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns. If the target's under a Freeze debuff, has a 75% chance of placing a Hex debuff and a 25% weaken debuff for 3 turns instead. That's a loaded kit. Okay, let's see. Placing a Hex at 100% when fully booked, a W, that's Hydra viability, and a 25% weaken debuff for 2 turns. That's useful everywhere. Weaken's really good for getting just extra damage out, right? If the target's under a Freeze debuff, has a 75% chance of placing a Hex debuff and a 25 debuff for 3 turns instead. So the only difference is that they're frozen, then you get 3 turns instead of 2 turns. Very microscopic in terms of value, but maybe Freeze is going to be more in the meta in the future anyways. We'll see. I don't know. Now, we do have Polar Vortex, which is A3. Places a Freeze debuff on all enemies for 1 turn. There's a Freeze. Fully depletes the turn meter of all enemies that receive free debuffs from the skill. Okay. Fills the turn meter of all allies by 10% for each Freeze debuff attempt blocked or resisted by the enemy. So, he's a turn meter fill champion for anybody that gets the attempt to get frozen, but doesn't get frozen. And it is on a 3-turn cooldown. So, I'm not gonna lie, when I was reading this Polar Vortex, you know what kind of came to my mind? This might be copium. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. You know, I might be coping with this one, but all my homies love you, Carl, right? And I was thinking about, like, in what areas can a champion abuse a freeze mechanic besides Caroline, and where there could be some synergy? And I was thinking, you know what? One of the actual go-to freezers in PvP content is your Carl, and he actually does extra damage, to frozen targets. So, is there some synergy there? I don't know. Probably not. Anyways, Rhyme Hammer, which is his passive, allies will ignore 10% of the target's defense if the target is under freeze debuffs. Huh? If the freeze debuff was placed by this champion, allies will ignore 20% of the target's defense instead. Huh? And then he has an ally arena battle one, so this is like a very, very heavy, like, they're intending for this guy to be like an arena utility type champion. Ally speed in arena by 30%. That is equivalent to an Arbiter Ore. Interesting. Interesting. I don't know if I'm really excited about that just yet, though. I'm not going to lie. Like, Freeze isn't really prominent in today's meta. And we're still under the sheep meta, so, like, it's kind of like a little bit of an annoyance to try to do CC to someone. But who knows? Maybe with the sheep or the polymorph adjustment, nerf, whatever you want to call it, that comes out, that might open the door some more debuff-centric type compositions, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Interesting champion. Maybe they're just doing it because it's, like, synergistic with Holiday. So they're kind of keeping it thematic with Holiday Spirit type content. So maybe that's where their intention comes from. But in terms of, like, incentivizing people wanting to get this champion, I'm not sure if I'm sold on this. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Feral, the Barkhorn? Barkhorn. I'm going to call him Feral. He's a legendary spirit defense champion for the Sylvan Watchers. That's a cool looking champion. Looks like a tree. Well, bark, huh? Alright, let's see here. What is his first kit? Clobber Trunk. Attacks one enemy, has an 80% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff for 2 turns. That's a pretty high chance. If the target is a boss, we'll ignore 20% of the target's resistance. Okay. Let's see. It could be booked up to a 100% chance to place a decreased speed debuff from an A1 on top of that. That's not bad. So where's the decreased speed really valuable at? I mean, you got Hydra, you got IT. To be honest with you, if you're looking in other areas of the game, I mean, decreased speed is actually pretty valuable because it's just a nuisance to try to keep up with your team if you're going fast while being slowed down. It's kind of annoying. So not too bad. Not too bad at all, actually. Boreal Growth, his second ability, is going to be attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a decreased accuracy debuff and a block buffs debuff for 2 turns. If the target is a boss, will ignore 20% of the target's resistance. Funny enough, I think we're yet again kind of looking at IT. This guy kind of screams IT for me, because decreased accuracy has some value in that particular mechanic as well. Now, with that being said, this is an attack all allies. For compositions that may have some uses from like a debuff-centric type comp, you're looking at like Hydra. Think of Contra, you know how her provoke system works. Having that extra element of like debuffs already on the boss before she even gets her turns means that when she does get her turns, she's provoking. There may be some value there. But I think if you're going to look at someone for Hydra, you need more than that. We'll see. Now, it can be booked up to 100%, it looks like, as well as cooldowns, down to a 3-turn cooldown. Now, the block buff is actually kind of a big deal because that does scream viability for Hydra. So I'm looking at 2 areas right now for this guy to be really good. IT, Hydra for sure. Aurora Cloak. Places an increased resistance buff on all allies for 3 turns. Okay. Also places a perfect veil on all allies except this champion for 2 turns. Hello! Hydra! Maybe a PvP. Veil's so annoying to deal with, man. Believe it or not. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it does have a pretty steep cooldown. It's a 6-turn cooldown, but when you book it fully, it's down to a 4-turn cooldown. 4-turn is a little bit more on the higher end side for cooldown purposes. Normally, the sweet spot's 3 or less if possible. So, the fact that he kind of does 2 things in one. So, like, Veil is really good against Torment. Block buffs is good against every head in Hydra. Decreased accuracy is particularly good against Mischief. I see Hydra now. I see a lot of Hydra capability with this guy. Depending on his damage modifiers, you might actually see some value out of his kit too in terms of like output. So it'll be interesting to see. Let's see what else he's got. Spirit of the North. If an ally is under 2 or more buffs, increases the resistance by 50. Nice. If an ally is under 3 or more buffs, also increases their accuracy by 50. Nice. If an ally is under 4 or more buffs, they also increase their damage dealt by 20%? Okay. 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 I'm keen. I'm kind of keen to this. Yo, 20% more damage just in general is like huge. That's a big number jump. But then, like, the more you're buffing on your team, the better they are in terms of efficiency. I definitely see like an area like Hydra where you could explore doing a very, very heavy buff-centric type composition, and you can lace in the control you need with like block buffs and whatnot using this champion. Ferrol has my attention, man. I like this guy. He's a spirit champion too. His aura also increases ally resistance in all battles by 60%. So this guy is designed to kind of make your team very high resistance, in particular, because not only does it decrease the enemy's accuracy, he's also increasing your resistance across the board and your efficiency with those same stats. On top of him just being basically existing in that comp, which you can lace another buffer or something like that with him, and you have your synergy. That's ridiculous. That's awesome. I like this Feral. That's not too bad. It's not too bad. This is the one I'm kind of excited about because I saw the teaser, and it looks really, really cool. His animations look really, really cool the way they kind of showcased him in the teaser, so I would like to see him in action. Gwendolyn the Silent, a legendary force attack-type champion from the Skinwalker tribe on my Skinwalker's Rise. So it's going to be a damage dealer. Talon Rake is A1. Attacks one enemy 3 times. Each hit has a 30% chance to extend the duration of all debuffs on the target by 1 turn. Where's that valuable at? Depending on who you're using, there's a chance that like having the increased duration of debuffs is actually valuable for like as a setup for other people. I don't know if that's necessarily where I would go at with this champion, but extended duration of debuffs is kind of nice. It's kind of nice. Who does that? It'd be crazy if this guy had like a debuff spread. That'd be even worse. Kind of thinking like Vizier, for example, who does like debuff extensions, which can be kind of annoying to deal with. Let's see here. It says each hits 30%, but when it's fully booked, it's a 50% chance. So you have 3 50% chance hits to increase the duration of all debuffs by 1 turn. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Depending on his attack modifiers, that would be the thing that would kind of really sell that Talon Rake, though. Sickle Boomerangs is A2. Attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a 30% decreased speed debuff and a leech debuff. Nice. On all enemies for 2 turns. Okay, you have my attention. You have my attention. When booked, it's at 100%. Also places a decreased accuracy debuff on enemies under 2 or more debuffs for 2 turns. And then when it's fully booked, it's a 3-turn cooldown. That is a good ability. Decreased speed and leech. I kind of talk about this myself on my live streams whenever I'm doing my Hydra runs. One of the things that I feel like I could have a little bit more efficiency with would be a decreased speed element, right? That's why I look towards like Necma, who not only boosts your speed, but he also decreases speed. That's one of the reasons, right? But if I have my increased speed taken care of, I could use him as a decreased speed champion and still have my leech, right? It's an option. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. And then you get the extra debuffs, right? All right. I like it. I like it. Plummet, or is it Plume Dart, which is his A3, attacks all enemies before attacking, places a 50% increased accuracy buff on all allies by 2 turns. Has a 75% chance of stealing all block debuffs from all enemies. Nice. Nice. So before he attacks, he puts debuff on himself, which means that his efficiency at landing debuffs is nice. Also, I'm pretty sure that steal is going to require some accuracy, kind of similar to your Sun Wukong. And then it says, if at least 1 block debuff was stolen from the enemy, places a block debuff buff on all allies for 1 turn. Wow. 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown. So all you gotta do is make sure you beat the resistance, the resistance formula. You know, basically you have enough accuracy to overtake their resistance, and you pretty much land it, right? Or you steal it, in this sense. Not bad at all, man. Okay, what an interesting champion. Bird of Prey. This champion's crit damage is increased by 1% for every 10 points of accuracy they have. Okay. Grants an extra turn after this champion uses any 3 skills. Huh? So every 3 turns, he gets an extra turn. Basically. Huh? And then his aura is increased accuracy by 60. You might as well just say that this is increased crit damage by 6%. That's not bad. If this dude has a pretty decent modifier, I think attack modifiers, this guy could be a problem. Not only protecting your team from debuffs, which is like one way people kind of like lock you down, giving himself efficiency and accuracy, which means that he also increases his damage output. I think the real selling point is going to be whether or not this guy has decent multipliers on his damaging abilities to see if maybe he could be a contender. Regardless, man, this guy looks super cool. So like an owl, kind of. I'm down. I like the way this guy looks. All right, then you have Blizzard. We're going to go ahead and skip him. And then, of course, Bovos, Sharphorn, who is going to be the epic you can farm to acquire Blizzard. So just keep that in mind when you're progressing in the fusion. Let's see what Bubba's got. He's an epic spirit support champion for the skinny boys, the skinwalkers. Defiled Earth. That doesn't sound like a support. Let's see here. His A1 is attacks one enemy has a 30% chance of placing a decreased speed debuff on the enemy for 2 turns. Booked up to a 50% chance. Not bad. There's a lot of decreased speed in this particular lineup of champions, huh? Locus of Diabolism. Say that 3 times. Locus of Diabolism. Anyways, attacks all enemies, has a 75% chance of placing a decreased crit rate buff and a decreased crit damage debuff, excuse me, on all enemies for 2 turns. Kind of annoying. You know who I think of whenever I see these two debuffs in play? I think of like Ursaga. Yeah, I think of Ursaga a little bit because of the decreased crit damage. It can be booked up to a 100% chance on a 3-turn cooldown when fully booked. That's okay. It's nothing too crazy, but it's not bad at all. Brimstone Boon removes 1 random debuff from all allies and then gives them increased crit rate and crit damage. Okay, that's not bad. But it is booked down to a 4-turn cooldown, so that's a little bit on the higher side for us in terms of like viability. On a cooldown rate. Blood for Blood, his passive is heals all allies by 10% of their max HP when they're hit with a critical hit. That actually, that's not bad. So a 10% heal, and then most people who are building up damage dealers, they build them with a 100% crit rate. That's kind of like that's almost like the rule of thumb. You know what I mean? That if you're building a champion well, that's your start, getting a 100% crit rate. So more often than not, as long as they're not negative affinity, it means they're going to crit. which means you're always guaranteed a 10% heal. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. Interesting champion. I don't know if I would actually go out of my way to build one, but a fun champion nevertheless. Has some really good debilitating damage output. Like, you could debilitate some damage output from the enemy, and as well as bolster your own. It's not too bad. That's not too bad as a support. The decreased speed's kind of interesting, too. I noticed that there's a lot of decreased speed across the board for all these champions, so... which ones are you guys excited for? Let me know in the comments below. I'm actually very curious to see what you guys think about it. I'm not too sure about how I feel about some of the legendaries, but I definitely think there's a couple standout ones that have some very good versatility in areas like Hydra, for example, that I can think of. Anyways, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and always remember, stay ascended.
So